Hello, and welcome to the Rockies Hockey Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me here today as I talk about another week of the Calgary Flames season. I'm your host, RT, and thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much to everyone who's clicked on previous episodes and checked them out. Thank you so much for taking the time to do so. I really hope you enjoyed them. Today's episode, we'll be talking about a bunch of things as the regular season winds down, starting with the three Calgary Flames games in Chicago, in Nashville, and then against the Stars at home. And then we're talking about just some of the other Flames accomplishments. Tkachuk getting 100, and then obviously some of the other Flames milestones that have happened this year. This has been a year of milestones for sure for this team. And also the Flames winning the Pacific Division, and my thoughts on that. Afterwards, we'll be just checking in on the wild card race. Pretty much the East is set right now. It's mostly the West, and that's just something crazy as we wind into the final week of the regular season. And I think this is going to be till the last game. The West wildcard race is going to be going on, and it's going to be pretty intense. I just want to check up on that because I did discuss that last time, and also on the potential playoff matchups and just discussing what the playoffs could look like. Finally, we'll be talking about the Hart race. This is something I really haven't talked about, and I think now it's really trying to narrow down between just a few players in a pretty big debate on who should win the Hart this year. So I'll be weighing in on that at the end of it. So, without further ado, let's get into this. So, the first thing I want to talk about is the game against the Chicago Blackhawks for the Calgary Flames. So this was back on April 18th, 2022. This was the first game that I'm going to be covering today. All right, and sorry, before we get into this, I had one more thing to mention. It's that this episode is going to come out on Saturday, April 23rd, not the typical Sunday, the 24th, just because tonight there is the Flames Canucks game on Saturday, and I won't be able to watch it since I do have something else going on this evening. So, and I just found it inconvenient for me to come home late at night, potentially, have watch the game, because it'll be I'll record the game, and then I'll have to watch it. Watch it late at night, and then get the recording done at night or Sunday morning. I just thought it would be too chaotic, so I've decided that the Canucks game is going to be covered in next week's episode, which will be out on April 30th. Sorry, no, May 1st, my bad, which will be out May 1st. So it's going to be a little bit later, but I think it's always be better for me to get this thing out with these three games, the Chicago, Nashville, and Dallas game. So, but yeah, I just needed to give a quick update on that. So, let's actually get into the game. Against Chicago, Flames win this one 5-2. Gaudreau had 2 goals as he just continues his season. He's having a great season, and I'm really happy about that. But for some reason, when watching this game, I was actually pretty frustrated, and I don't know why, but I did get pretty frustrated. And okay, and I guess now that I look back on it, might have been a little bit unreasonable, but I just feel like I was just kind of pissed when I was watching this game. It's gonna sound ridiculous because the Flames won 5-2 and it was a nice game. And I think the biggest thing that comes to mind with this game is that the Flames had this game in their hand when they were up 2-0, when they were up 3-1. And they just let Chicago stay in it until the last, I would say, until the last 2-ish minutes of the third when they pulled their goalie and the Flames had the 2 empty net goals. It just felt like unnecessarily dragged out to the point that it was. And I mean, come on. Okay, I'll just talk about how this game happened, okay? So, give you a little bit of context. And I'll kind of remind myself exactly how the game went. So, 22 seconds in, Flames' third line is out to open the game. They get out there, get an offensive zone shift going. Hanifin, from the point, throws the puck on net. Coleman gets a tip on it, and then Dubé gets a tip on it. So it's a double tip, and the puck goes one way. Their goalie, was it Lankinen? Yes, Kevin Lankinen, I believe. He was in net. He goes one way, the puck goes the other way, and it's a goal. And at 22 seconds in, Flames were already up 1-0. And then about 6 minutes later, Johnny Gaudreau makes such a nice play. He gets the puck behind the net from Tkachuk, goes all the way around, circles it through the offensive zone, and just gets his spot and just shoots that. It was a beautiful goal. And Johnny Gaudreau gets 37, which was actually a career high for him. The highest was 36 back in 2018-19. So that was nice. But then about 30-ish seconds later, Tyler Johnson comes back and scores. Just a horrible defensive shift for the Flames. Can get the puck out and just let them have too many chances on Markstrom. You can't blame Markstrom on that, and Tyler Johnson makes it 2-1. Calgary. And then Coleman, um, also in the first, makes it 3-1 Calgary. Coleman had 2 points in this game, which was nice. Again, I think he's trying to get into this groove. He was a little bit cold of late, but I think as the playoffs coming near, he's also really getting into it, which is what the Flames really do need from their depth. And then the second period, Flames dominate the second period. And no, seriously, like I'm just gonna go into the play-by-play here of the second. Flames had so many shots, so much time on attack. And I hope they tell me how many shots there were on the second here. Because Flames were the dominant team in this entire period. The Chicago Blackhawks thought they were chasing the puck, and they get, I think, what was one of their first shots of the period, and they score. Alec Regula. And go check this out online, this goal, if you haven't seen it. By Alec Regula. This was his first career goal, by the way. And he just kind of shoots it from the point, like a wrister from the point, and it goes all the way, and then it kind of like Markstrom's there. He sees the puck coming, and the puck just hits the post and goes in the net. And some of Markstrom doesn't really see, doesn't get like a good feel of the puck, and just lets it in. It was a very bad goal, and that's not Markstrom at all. And I would blame Markstrom, but it's gonna bring me to the point that Markstrom's playing too much again. Even after this week, I still feel it. And I've talked about this thing for the last 2 or 3 episodes that Markstrom's playing too many games. Vladar's not playing enough, and even though Vladar played Nashville, I was hoping that Markstrom would play Nashville and Vladar would go against the Hawks. And that didn't happen. It was Markstrom here and Vladar against the Preds. And I was like, oh my god, are you serious? And I mean, come on. It just feels like he's been played too much, and you could tell he was tired. At the same time, he didn't even face that many shots in this game. And I think that also impacted it, that he just wasn't really in the game because he wasn't facing that many shots. And that's why he allowed the goal, and there were just problems on all levels, I think, there, and it made it 3-2. And in the period where the Flames dominated, the second period where the Flames dominated the game, Blackhawks are getting a shot at crawling back into this one, right? And it was like, and it was just frustrating. Like, why do you let that happen? And I think part of it just came from why is Markstrom playing? And nothing against Markstrom, of course. Obviously, I think Markstrom has been one of the Flames' best players this year. I would say one of the biggest players up there with Gaudreau, Tkachuk, and Lindholm. And to overplay him like this, it's just egregious. Like, you don't need to play Markstrom every single game, especially these easy ones against a team like the Hawks that's no longer in the playoff race. But regardless, and it was just frustrating. And I said pretty much that the way the Flames have kind of played this game and treated the game, if the Flames don't win this game by 3 goals, you could just, even if the Flames win, but they don't win by 3 goals, you could just write it off as a loss because we let them stay in the game so long. And then after that, they scored 2 empty netters, and it was a 5-2 win, and I was like satisfied. But again, it should have never been this close. Tkachuk and Shillington get the 2 empty netters. And I was just frustrated, like really frustrated with the fact that Markstrom was starting this game. And even he had a good game. He had a .917 save percentage in this one. Regardless, it's definitely frustrating. But what are you going to do? Flames win the season series against the Hawks, though, which is very, very nice. A 3 sweep, so sweep them all, won all 3 games. Believe by an aggregated score of 15-5, which is pretty nice. So good stuff. Good stuff indeed. That's pretty much it for the Hawks game. I thought penalty kill, power play, both was okay. There wasn't anything too other than that, just nothing too much to talk about this one. So let's move on to the Nashville Predators game. This one I have a lot more to say. So my thoughts on this one, heading into this one, were like, and I talked about this last episode as well. The fact that right now, I think the wild card race is between Nashville, Dallas, and Vegas. And I don't want Vegas in it. I want to just stay Nashville and Dallas. I don't care who gets first, second wild card between the Preds and the Stars. And my thought was, well, look, the Flames, because they have 2 games in the final 2 weeks. This one and then plus 1 more still next week against the Preds. They have 2 games against the Preds. Maybe they just let them take 2 points. Maybe the Flames just let them win one of them, right? Let them have the 2 points just to give a little bit of a push down to Vegas. Or maybe the Flames take both games to overtime and and then win in overtime and let the Preds take home the loser point from overtime or shootout. And so, pretty much that was my thoughts going into the game. Like, come on, Flames should probably think about giving Preds some points. And they did, but they tried. And my thought was, well, the Flames shouldn't have actually tried to win this game, considering the fact that if the Flames beat Preds both games, let's say in regulation, and they beat Stars in regulation, which is what they did, they're basically giving these teams who already have a tough schedule for the rest of the year, putting them down in the standings and allowing Vegas a way into the playoffs. And I'm a little bit scared of that. My thoughts on Vegas are like, if they make it, they're going to be a big team. Sutter said it. They're going to be a big time, like $100 million team in the playoffs. The cap doesn't matter. Cap doesn't matter anymore, and you're going to see the full on Vegas Golden Knights in the playoffs. And when they're not limited by things like cap and all that, they're a really strong team, and they're not a wild card team. Is what I mean to say. So that is a little bit worrying for me, and that's why that thought came in. But then the Preds won in the shootout. And in my opinion, I don't prefer to complain about the shootout too much because at the end of the day, and I'm kind of skipping over parts of this game, but it kind of ended the way. Like the Preds got the 2 points, and now it's like, okay, well, it feels a little better to me because now they have 2 more points, and I think they might as well have solidified their spot in the standings. I'm not going to take a look too much into the standings right now because I'm not going to buy too much in the standings because we're going to be talking about. I'll just take a look afterwards and letting all my thoughts come out there. But yeah, like yeah, but we give them the 2 points. Let them take the 2 points. So how did this game go? First period we held on to it, and I felt in the first, man, we played a horrible game, and I wasn't actually angry about it. And I mean, look, the Flames can win the game and play like that, and I'll still be angry. This time, I really wasn't, because there was part of me that was just like, well, maybe it's not that bad if Nashville takes home a point or two from this one. And so I wasn't necessarily complaining, and then they made it. And then, but I felt like, honestly, the first Flames were pretty lucky. Like, they were lucky to not have 15 shots against after the first and, like, being down 2-0. It was a 0-0 game, and the shots were pretty much in control. Pretty even, I would say, after the first. And so that was kind of the thought, I guess, that came to mind. And then second period comes along, and on the power play, Philip Forsberg scores. His 39th. And then Matt Duchene scores his 40th, not on the power play, but after that. And I was like, yes, here we go, we're down 2-0. And which I wasn't, again, too bummed. And then Mangiapane on the power play scored. Tkachuk got his 99th point on that with an assist on that one. It was nice, so Gaudreau also got a point, got an assist. And Mangiapane, he's getting back into the groove. I talked about Coleman's kind of getting back. I think Mangiapane's kind of getting back. I think Toffoli's also sort of getting back into it. Backlund as well. Everyone's trying to, like, all the depth scorers on this team are starting to kind of get back into it, and I think that's what the Flames need in the playoffs. So it's good to see. Mangiapane had 2 goals. He was actually tied up in the third. And then after he scored that goal, the entire third period, I was like, please let this go to overtime. And I never prayed that because the Flames have a pretty bad OT record this year. And that's because I was hoping, well, if the Flames take it to overtime, then Nashville gets that 1 point, which is good, and the Flames can win it, whatever, and they can take it home, right? They can just take the game home, they can get the 2 points, but they can give Nashville one as well, just to help keep Vegas out of the playoffs. And the entire time I was just stressed out. I was more stressed when it was 2-2 in regulation than in overtime, which is ridiculous. I get that. That's that. And then, so I'm going to skip over overtime because I want to talk about something about that in a little bit. Let's go to the shootout. Last time the Flames lost to the shootout, which was against not the Dallas Stars, the LA Kings, where they lost 3-2 at home in the shootout. I wasn't too upset about the shootout. I was upset about how regulation went and how the overtime, the 5 minutes of overtime went for the Flames. I wasn't too pissed about losing in the shootout because my thought is shootouts don't matter in the postseason. There are no shootouts in the playoffs. And so if you're not a good shootout team, sure, that might make you lose some points in the regular season. But as long as you're in the playoffs, it's not going to impact you in the playoffs. Overtime, the pressure of overtime, that's a skill you need to have. Because even in the regular season, like, overtime happens way more than shootout does. And so you might need that skill. And also the pressure of overtime, whether it's 5-on-5 or 3-on-3. The basic skills of playing your structured game at 5-on-5 in regulation. That's all stuff you need for the playoffs. The shootout, honestly, it's not. If you're not a good shootout team, it is not going to be the end of you, right? And for the Flames, they made the playoffs, and they've won a few shootouts, but they have also lost A couple. And I don't get angry about losing shootouts because you don't need that in the playoffs. And so just because you're not good with the shootout doesn't mean you're screwed for the playoffs. Unless you're fighting for a wild card spot and you desperately need every point you get and you suck in the shootout and you go to the shootout, maybe then that's bad. But regardless, what I felt was this time I wasn't really pissed about the shootout. Again, whatever, right? If Nashville was gonna get the 2 points, it's fine. If it's gonna be Nashville who gets the 2 points, I will give it to them because it's gonna contribute to pushing Vegas out of the playoffs. And that's what I don't want to see. Unless Vegas comes against Colorado and gives Colorado a bad time, a hard time, then that's okay. But regardless, this was my thoughts on it. And whatever happened, but the shootout did piss me off right now, in this one specifically. I wasn't too mad about losing in the shootout, whatever. What pissed me off about this shootout was the fact that, what were those tries? We send out Gaudreau, and then Tkachuk, and then I believe it was Toffoli on the shootout. And I just thought, what? And yeah, okay, I can see the shootout right here. Beautiful. Yeah, so they send out Philip Forsberg, who didn't score. And then Flames send out Gaudreau, who got stopped. And then they send out Matt Duchene, who got stopped. And then the Flames sent out Tkachuk, who got stopped. And then sent out Michael Granlund, who puts a nice shot on a goal against Dan Vladar. Yeah, did I mention Dan Vladar was playing this game? A key playoff matchup game. So, and I guess if the goal was to maybe give the Preds an easier time, just to get them a point or two, then it's fair. But then you got Michael Granlund, who scores just a nice shot, nice release. Who fakes out Vladar, I would say, just gets a nice 5-hole shot going. I thought he kind of faked to go far side and then went 5-hole, if I'm not mistaken, or did the other way around, but did something nice. And then Tyler Toffoli comes out, and I'm like, oh no, you have to send Lindholm. And Tyler Toffoli gets stopped. Why was I angry about this? And I wasn't angry at the selection. It makes sense why you would send out Gaudreau, Tkachuk, and Toffoli. I would have sent out Lindholm afterwards. But oh well, or Mangiapane, but I'm not complaining. My thoughts come from this. The Flames have so much talent when it comes to making nice, tricksy moves in the shootout. Johnny Gaudreau, he has such soft hands. He always goes 5-hole. He has so much talent. Like, sure, all the goalies now know that he used to like to go 5-hole, and now he goes top corner. But at the same time, Gaudreau's still good with the 5-hole. Like, he can still put that, he can still dangle out the goalie and try to score like that. And yet he doesn't do that just to shoot. And I'm like, in the shootout, you have so much time and space to just deke and stick handle and break the goalie's ankles. Figuratively, not literally, and score. He doesn't do that. He shoots, and then Tkachuk, and I'm like, and then he tries. I think he kind of tried to. To me, it looked like he was trying to go one-hand 5-hole, like what he pulled on Anaheim in the shootout a while back. Trying to pull that and got shut down, and he just made him look stupid. And I was like, what are you doing? Try better on the shootout. And what pisses me off is that the Flames have such good talent for the shootout. They have players who have the right skills and the right talent to win in a shootout, or at least score in a shootout, and yet they don't use it, and they don't. And then Toffoli comes in, and I don't know what he does. I don't really remember that. But it was frustrating because the Flames couldn't do that. They didn't do that against LA either, and I'm too angry. And it felt like this could have been a win for the Flames, but oh well, I'm not complaining. Nashville gets the 2 points, and I think this 2 points could be the 2 points that helps them just to get that edge over the second wildcard spot and that edge over Vegas coming in. So, okay, whatever. There's a point in this game that I kind of want to mention right now. Just want to remember, and I'm going to tell this in the Dallas game. Flames took another penalty in overtime, like they did against the Kings. And just like against the Kings, I felt if the Flames hadn't taken that penalty, I'm not going to tell you what the penalty is just yet. If the Flames hadn't taken that penalty, they could have just won it in overtime. What was the penalty, you ask? You could guess. You could guess it was tripping. You could guess it was hooking, holding, maybe interference. It was too many men was the call in overtime. Are you serious? I know. That's what I thought. Too many men. Same with Rasmus. 4 guys were out, basically. Was it a fair call? Sure, it was a fair call. There were 4 Flames on the ice. I'm like, you can't manage yourselves in overtime to be able to stop getting on a too many men. I was just angry. Like, come on, seriously? And this really did frustrate me. I don't know. Like, it was frustrating because you take that penalty, and the Flames did a really good job, I think, of killing it. Killing the penalty. and shading the shootout. But if the Flames hadn't taken this penalty, they could have easily won this game in overtime. Same goes for the LA game before that, but I'm more angry about this one because this one just felt like a blown opportunity more than anything. And I guess I'm not that frustrated just because it's Nashville getting the points. If this was against any other team, I would have probably been a lot more frustrated with that. And yeah, so just frustrating. Shouldn't have been like that, but what are you gonna do? There isn't much you can do about it. Um, Overall, but I think Mangiapane had a really good game. He had 2 goals. He's trying to kind of get back into it. I think. That's what we want to see from some of the top guys and some of the depth scorers of this team. And so I'm glad with that. And the next one versus the Dallas Stars. No, the things with this one was the Flames win, they clinched. And they clinched the division. Flames win the Pacific Division, which is really awesome. We'll get to that in a little bit. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I have that saved for a little bit forward. My thoughts on this game. I think this was a pretty good game from the Calgary Flames. Overall, it was pretty complete. I would say, yeah, it was a pretty complete performance. I think, top to bottom for sure. Looking at some of the points, there aren't anything very too specific. Toffoli had a goal and an assist in this one. Oh wait, he had a goal. He had an assist. Sorry, my bad. I thought that was a goal. Never mind. Yep. So he had an assist. In this one, Toffoli with an assist. I believe that was his 200th career assist as well. I was reading that online, which is nice, and that's the milestone I mentioned among all the other ones. But also, Tkachuk gets his 40th of the year and his 100th point of the year. Second Flame to do so this year. He's up there with Gaudreau now, and the first time since 1990-91 that 2 Flames have had 100 points. Back there was Al McInnes and Theo Fleury. So that's pretty awesome. And Tkachuk also, talk about these accomplishments a little bit later. And this is also the first Flame starter to score 40 goals, Matthew Tkachuk, since Jerome McGinley did so in 2010-11. Really, really awesome. It does definitely get better, and that's really good for the Flames, I think. Solid performance. Solid. Just to see how they've been playing this year, all those things are starting to come in, which is good. My thoughts on this game. Similar for this one, I felt like if the Flames lost it, it would have been okay. Or if the Flames gave up a point or two to the Stars, it would have been fine. Because again, same reasoning as a wild card. I was a little bit more wanting to beat the Stars because I kind of hate, because Stars are one of my less favorite teams in the entire league. Because of the fact that they beat the Flames in the playoffs a couple of years back in the bubble playoffs. And so, yes, past vengeances, past frustrations, But regardless, I think the Flames were a pretty good game. First period, no goals. And this one was a penalty fest in the first. I believe, I'm going to take a look at let's go into the penalties here. Or no, I can probably just view that right here, right? Please tell me I can find this somewhere. Okay. So I just want to check to see exactly who took the penalties. I don't want to say necessarily the wrong. There you go. Found the penalties. Perfect. So, in the first, Lindholm takes a penalty. Against Roope Hintz. And so in the Dallas power play, Roope Hintz trips Coleman. So it's 4-on-4. And on the 4-on-4, Ryan Suter trips Kali Yarncrow. And gives the Flames a 4-on-3, which would then turn into 5-on-3. But as the 4-on-3 is ending, Michael Backlund trips Esa Lindell. And it's 4-on-4. And it was a pretty chaos. It was just back and forth penalties. And just this first period's ending, Flames taking out their too many men. And I was like, oh no, that's back-to-back games of too many men on the ice. It's a 0-0 close game. And the Flames take another too many men here in the first. It's not as critical as overtime, but that's too many men back-to-back. And guess what? Another too many men call in the second. And I was frustrated. Too many men? Out of all the weaknesses the Calgary Flames could have, too many men on the ice is one of them. Your weakness could be, I don't know, playing good defense, playing goaltending, playing offense, depth scoring, which is one of the Flames' problems, special teams, which I don't think is one of the Flames' problems. And yet the problem the Flames have is too many men. It's 3 too many men calls in 2 games. Or if you want to be more specific, that's 3 too many men penalties in 2 periods, plus an overtime. straight, like in a span of an overtime plus 2 periods of play. Less than that, actually. Ridiculous. I know, it's crazy, dumb. Maybe just a coincidence. Maybe it's forgivable. Every once in a while, too many men happens, it's forgivable. But 3 of them in such a short span, 2 of them in a game. That's pretty bad, I think, and I was pretty disappointed. That just sucks. Yeah. So Flames gotta be more responsible at doing that. Changing, I guess. Changing lines, not changing clothes. Sorry, ridiculous. Sorry, sounded dumb. I had to clarify. But no, seriously though, in all seriousness, when you're doing that, you gotta be more careful. Gotta be more responsible. Sutter didn't like it. Obviously, why should he? And it was. But the penalty fest continues. There were a total of 5 power plays for the Stars and 4 for the Flames. We give 5 penalties, and I think, well, actually, there were 2 in the third, but they were both down. So the Flames took 5 penalties in just the first 2 periods, which was really, really bad, I think. And one of them obviously cost the Flames a goal. A couple of bad ones as well. A couple of bad penalties as well. Like, Goodbranson, I think he did one in retaliation to Studenic. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Like, come on, just be more responsible, I think. And 5 penalties is pretty bad. He scored on one of them, gave them some life, I guess. And Flames also had 4 penalties. It wasn't like Flames took 5 penalties and the Stars took like 2. And I think this was a little bit forgivable considering the fact that the Flames have been more or less responsible previously. But that brings my point. The Flames also took 5 penalties against the Predators the game before. Gave the Predators 5 power plays, and the Flames have been 4 of 5 on their power play last 2 games, both games. So Flames did allow that one goal, and I guess they can't really blame it. It was just a nice shot, and it got deflected in the goal, but I think it hit Tanev maybe, on its way in. And so yeah, I don't really know if much to say, but that's a lot. The Flames got to be more responsible as well. Special teams have been okay though. Still had the 1 power play goal, which was Tkachuk's goal. And overall, we won the game. One of the things I did notice the Flames are doing pretty well in this one, and the Stars were doing a lot of. I felt like a lot of the times, the Stars would try to kind of come up on the rush and then try to like sneak by the defenseman, like they quickly get the puck in the neutral zone, and then try to like skate to the defenseman, and then try to like sneak by them, like wheel by our defense. And our defense did a pretty good job of like showing their size and like pushing them away and not letting them do that. Except for that one goal, they let them do that. Which was the 2-2 goal where they tied it up. And Glendening scored, and I was like, oh my god, you let that happen. And yeah, it was a frustrating goal as well to let in. I was like, come on, seriously? And again, you let that get close. The Flames let this game get too close at times. We did come away with the win though, and then I believe after that, Noah Hanifin scored. Noah Hanifin scored the 2-1 goal, 20 seconds into the third, which is also pretty good. Early goals again. You want to see that. And then Lugan tied it up right on that weird breakaway-ish goal. And then Tanev, right? Tanev's the guy that scored. And then Andrew Mangiapane in the empty net. So Mangiapane's kind of getting back in this one as well. He's caught 3 goals in his previous 2 games. His last 2 games, which is pretty nice. So yeah, good for him for sure. And sort of getting back into the groove here. That's my thoughts on it. Was there anything else I wanted to mention? Not really, honestly. Just some of the Flames' accomplishments that are going on as we speak. Starting off with Tkachuk hits 100 points. Becomes the second Flame to do so this year. And as I mentioned earlier, the first pair of Flames to do this since the 1990-91 season to have 2 Calgary Flames have 100 points. Gaudreau was the first Flame to hit 100 points since I believe the 92-93 or the 93-94 season. When Theo Fleury did it. And Theo Fleury and Al MacInnis did it back in 1991 to get it to have the record now that broken. So I think back then I believe so regardless of that, let's forget that for now. So back then, I'm gonna go back to that point. I believe Al MacInnis had 103 points and Fleury had 104 if I'm not wrong. Gaudreau already has 109? I think. Let me check. So Gaudreau is 109. Yeah, 109. He's 3rd in league points. Which is really solid. Think about it this way. Tkachuk has 5 more games left in the year. No, 4 more? Yeah, 4 more games left this year. To potentially get more than that. And the Flames could have like the 200-point scores. And both these 100-point scores could have more points than the 1990-91 year where there was last time where two Flames finished at 100 points. That is really really solid. Another thing that could happen. Um, Tkachuk hits the 40th goal as well. First guy since Iginla to do it in 2010-11. It's really awesome. There's a lot of accomplishments this year for sure. I think everyone's having career highs. Gaudreau in goals, assists, and points. Same with Tkachuk. And I believe also the same with Lindholm. No, maybe not points. I'm not sure. Mangiapane's having a career year, the best of his year, and he's still looking at, I think, doing even better than what he's doing right now. Because he's got a lot. He can see so much room for improvement still. Everyone's having just such a good year, and it feels really, really solid. Everyone on the back end is also having a really good year. It's really awesome. Flames win the Pacific Division because of all of this, and clinch first place in the division. So, if you look at the Calgary Flames, they've got the little Y beside their name because we win the division, and I'm really happy to say that we have. It's pretty good relief. Just feels like we've got that accomplishment point, and now the Flames can maybe start to rest some guys just because we have that position now. Yeah, it's just been a great year for the Flames. I did want to bring a point here though, and it's part of my battle. The Flames could win the cup this year. This is gonna be a pretty big take. This is the best Flames team ever. Best Flames lineup in a single season ever. All time. I'm gonna go ahead and say bold claim. Better than the 1989 Flames that won the cup. Better than the 04 Flames. I think overall though, the 04 Flames overall, they made a really good run, but their roster overall was I think it was more just the structure they played with and not the roster. But this is the best Flames team ever. Better than 89, better than 04, better than whatever the Flames had in the 80s and the 90s, even though they're such good players. And why do I say this? I say this because this is the first time since back in that era the Flames have had 200-point scores. Both these 100-point scores could surpass those 200-point scores from the 90s, which was from the 90-91 year, which was Al MacInnis and Theo Fleury. Furthermore, I think the Flames' record to start this season was I think the best since the 89 Flames. The Flames are looking right now to have finish with a better record, a much better record than the 18-19 Flames. Right now the Flames are 48-20-10. Back in 18-19, the 2018 the Flames had a 50-25-7 record, I believe. They hit the 50 win mark. The Flames have 4 more games and have 2 more wins to get to 50. So the Flames win maybe even 3 of their next 4. They could get to 51 wins, which would be better, and even get more points than they had back in 18-19. So, is this the best team? I'm going to say it is. And then I think the common thought that comes to mind is, and the common argument that I would say that would come to mind to this statement is that if this is the best Flames team ever, then the Flames were one of the top teams in 18-19. The Flames were one of the top teams just in the regular season. Back in the late 80s and the 90s. Then why aren't they the number 1 team in the league right now? Why are they literally like 5th or 6th? I believe that's what it is. You can take a look at the entire league standings. Just take a look. League standings. Yeah, Flames are 7th in the league. Wow. Okay. Pretty bold, but regardless, then why? That's because the entire league has also improved. There's so many good teams this year, better than what we often see, and therefore, the Flames are kind of not the number 1 team in the league, or not one of the top 3 teams in the league. They're 7th, but they're still so good that they're this high up. They're still better, I think, than those teams are. There's your point. The Flames are a legitimate competitor. They have such a good lineup top to bottom, and just a thought that comes to my mind, and that's my opinion on it. Pretty bold claim, and I could be absolutely wrong about this when the playoffs come by, but hoping for it, I guess. So another topic I've really wanted to talk about, because I haven't even taken the time to really look at this until this moment here. The wild card race, especially the West wild card race. So let's just get right into it, because this can be pretty solid here. Let's take a look at the East. So, in the Central Division, Colorado, who is first, Minnesota second, and St. Louis is third. They've all clinched. For the Pacific, Calgary has clinched the division. Edmonton has also clinched, unfortunately. as a Flames fan. And there's Los Angeles, who's third in the Pacific, who hasn't clinched yet. The wild card, which is Nashville and Dallas, haven't clinched yet either. So if Vegas is going to take someone's spot, it's going to obviously be LA, Nashville, or Dallas. I'm going to say most likely it's going to be one of the wild card spots they take. And so I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at everyone's upcoming. So let's take a look at, step back. Let's look at everyone's record. Nashville is one game in hand over Vegas, and they're in the first wildcard spot with 93 points. Vegas, with one more game played, they have 89, so they're 4 points behind. However, Vegas and Dallas have the same games played, and Dallas has 91 points, Vegas has 89, so a 2-point difference. Meanwhile, LA has played one more game than Vegas, so Vegas has a game in hand over LA. But LA is 5 points ahead of Vegas. It's starting to, I think, really seem like it's going to be one of the wildcard spots that gets taken. But I'm going to open up all of the standings for Dallas, the schedule, for Dallas, Nashville, LA, and then Vegas, to get an idea here, to see what it looks like. Because I'm pretty curious to see how it's kind of shaping up into, what these teams' seasons are shaping into. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at Vegas first, maybe. Let's do that. So, last time we had the podcast, that was last weekend. So when we recorded that, when I recorded that, basically, the next few games that were against New Jersey and Washington. I counted the New Jersey game as a loss. As a win for the Knights, and the Caps game is a potential loss for the Knights. And it actually happened the other way around. Knights actually lost to the Devils 3-2 in regulation, which means they don't get any points. But they beat the Caps in overtime 4-3, which means they do get the 2 points, unfortunately. I guess because I don't want them in the playoffs. That's my opinion on it. Fortunately for them, I guess. Looking at the rest of the season, they have 4 games. They have one Sunday the 24th against the Sharks, a daybreak, and then a back-to-back against. They're both on a road trip, Dallas, Chicago, and then they have a day off, and then St. Louis. So, looking at their overall schedule, and I said this last time, I'm going to say it again, that Dallas game could be basically the do or die for both these teams. Whoever wins that game could easily take the wild card spot that's remaining and get into the playoffs. Because when you think about it, Dallas is only 2 points ahead. And let's take a look at Dallas' schedule now, because I think they're probably most likely to get replaced. They have won tonight, the 23rd, against the Kraken. They have 2 days off. They have the rest of their games at home, by the way. 2 days off. One against the Vegas and then Arizona on a back-to-back. A day off, and then Anaheim. So think about it. Dallas doesn't have that hard of a schedule. They've got Seattle, Arizona, and Anaheim, who are definitely not playoff teams. Should be pretty easy games. And then they have Vegas. So let's start comparing and contrasting. Both have 4 games left. Dallas has 2 more points. Let's say Vegas goes ahead and beats the Sharks. They get 2 points there. They beat the Hawks. They get 2 more points there. I'm going to skip over the Dallas game here. They beat the Hawks, and then let's say they lose to the Blues, because the Blues are really, really solid. So that means, other than the Dallas game, they get to 4 points. They get 4 points, and then they lose that game. So they get 4 more points. Meanwhile, the Stars, though, they've pretty much, like Seattle, Arizona, and Anaheim, those are easy teams. They should beat them. Should, I say. Because anything can happen. That should be 6 more points for them. Which would, in theory, put them up 4. Not counting the Vegas-Dallas game just yet. Would, in theory, bring the Dallas Stars, because that would be 6 more points, to 97 points. While the Vegas Golden Knights would be at 93. And then so, if Vegas and Dallas game, to be quite honest, I would say that Vegas beats Dallas in that game. Let's say Vegas beats Dallas. Dallas still takes that playoff spot home. Right? I have to think now. So 4 games. Vegas would be going 3-1, so 3 wins, which would give them 6 points, which would give Vegas, by the end of the year, a total of 95 points. However, I would say Dallas wins 3 of them, and they get 6 more points. They get 6 more points. Same as Vegas. And so they would have 97 points, and they would still win it. So the way it looks like right now, Vegas doesn't get Dallas' spot. But that doesn't mean anything because there's also Nashville if Nashville starts sucking, because I think they have a tough schedule. Yeah, they have a tough schedule. If Nashville starts sucking, then Dallas could get first wild card, Vegas could get second, and Nashville could be out. You see the cooking. You see the cooking. All the stuff that's happening around here. Oh yeah, it is happening. Things are happening. Okay, so let's say Vegas out of their next. So the 4 games they go 3-1-0. Which by the end of the year, they would be up at 95 points. 10th year. Dallas will be at 97, and Nashville. They also have 4 games left. Oh no, sorry, they have 5 games left. They have Tampa. They have Tampa in Tampa, and then they travel all the way back home on a back-to-back to play Minnesota. So there's travel in between as well. They have a day off, and then they play Calgary. They have a day off, and then they play Colorado and Arizona. Let's take a look. From this Tampa game, which is tonight, the 23rd, they have 5 games in 7 nights. Holy crap, that's tiring. They're already tired. They already had a pretty tough run. Chicago, and then back-to-back in St. Louis, and then Calgary, and you're tired from that. They have Tampa, Minnesota, and Calgary. Those 3 games in 4 days. These are 3 teams that are top 10 in the standings, to the superstar powerhouse teams. And then they have Colorado and then Arizona to finish the year. Honestly, I would say this Arizona game might as well just be written off, because that's in the end of the year. As I said last time, the Nashville Predators mess it up against Tampa, Minnesota, Calgary, and Colorado. That Arizona game might not even matter. But let's just view this subjectively. Let's say the Preds, and this is going to be let's talk about more of an optimistic viewpoint from the Preds. Let's say the Preds lose to Tampa. Being optimistic here. Let's say the Preds lose to Tampa. Beat Minnesota. They lose to Calgary. Lose to Colorado and then beat Arizona. I'm being optimistic and I'm saying they lose most of these games. It's tough if you're the Preds. Let's say they lose to Tampa. They beat Minnesota, which means they get 2 points there. Let's say it's a overtime or shootout game against Calgary, but they lose it. Let's say the Flames beat them in overtime or shootout, because maybe, who knows, maybe the Flames will be like, here's a point, because we don't want to see Vegas in the playoffs. Ideally, they do that. And I mean, I don't think a lot of teams have that mentality to lose a game going into one, but to maybe just play just let them sneak it in. Just let them sneak a point to Nashville. Maybe they do that. Let's say they get a point from the Calgary game. Single point. They lose to Colorado and they beat Arizona. So that would mean in these final 5, they would go 2-1. Right? 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 overtime. And then 1 overtime or shootout loss. 2-1, that would give them 5 points. And to go back to the standings. So they have 5 points. They finished the year with 98. That's being optimistic. Dallas, I said, potentially gets 97. Vegas gets 95. That would still keep the standings the same. Let's look at the national schedule from more of a negative viewpoint, or maybe in a more realistic standpoint. That was kind of positive. And I guess if you want to go really positive, you can say they beat Tampa. Even, right? They beat Calgary, and they get 2 points. That's being more optimistic, I think. Being quite realistic, and considering how tired they would be after playing big teams like Tampa, Minnesota, Calgary, Colorado. I say they lose to Tampa. They maybe get a point from the Minnesota game. After that, they lose to Calgary. They lose to Colorado. And then they beat Arizona. That would put the record at, let's say they have like 1 overtime win, right? Because let's put that in there, right? Tampa is a loss. So that's a loss. Minnesota, that's maybe like a overtime. So in this way, they go 1-3-1. 1 win, which would be against Arizona, which is the last game of the year. Again, who knows if that game even factors into any of this? Because it might be too late by then for the Preds. 1-3-1. That 1 win is Arizona, as I said. The 3 losses would be Tampa, Calgary, and Colorado, and then maybe they get a point. Maybe they get the point against Calgary or Minnesota. But regardless, they go 1-3-1. That's only 3 points for them. They only get 3 points. They finished the year with 96. They get 96. Dallas gets 97, which would put Dallas in the first wildcard, Nashville in the second, and keep Vegas out of it. So, realistically, under those situations, those circumstances, it looks like that potentially Vegas gets pushed out of it. which I think that's ideal for a lot of the teams in the West. But who knows? There's still a lot that can happen. Vegas could easily beat St. Louis if they're really into the zone by that point. Um, Dallas could maybe lose the game to Anaheim or Seattle. Who knows? Right? And that really, really does shake things up. Let's take a look to LA though, because I doubt LA gets replaced. But as I said, Vegas finishes the year with 95 points. Being realistic. Being realistic, Vegas finishes the year with 95 points. Let's take a look at LA's schedule. LA's currently at 94, so LA would really have to mess this up. But they only have 3 games left. It's against Anaheim, and then they have a 3-day break, and then Seattle, Vancouver on a back-to-back on a road trip. These should be 3 pretty easy games for LA. And LA would actually have to lose all 3 of these games in regulation even. Yeah, they would have to lose all these three games in regulation to lose the 3rd spot in the Pacific to Vegas. However, wait, could they lose? Maybe take an L in overtime? Oh yeah, I think they could. Yeah, they could. They could. If they do lose in overtime and they get to 95 points, they could still, because of the wins, then Vegas will also have more wins. It would be tied in points, but I would have more wins, so I would assume they make it into. So, I mean, LA gets anything more than 1 point from these 3 games, they'll make their spot, which is like a sigh of relief for a lot of people, I would assume. Another team I do want to talk about is Vancouver. Could they do it and maybe make the playoffs? Let's check it out. I didn't really think of this. I never actually assumed the Canucks could, but they're making a push for it. There's no question about it. Let's take a look at their last little bit. So, they beat Dallas 6-2. And then they lost in overtime on a back-to-back lost in a shootout to Ottawa. So they do get the 1 loser point. And they have a day break, and they lost 6-3 to Minnesota. I think that was a pretty big slap to the face for the Canucks, that game, from what I heard. And so now, looking at that, their schedule, they have 4 games, including tonight against the Flames. They have 2 more games, and then 2 days off, and then Seattle at home, a day off, and then Los Angeles at home, and then a back-to-back against Edmonton where they travel to Edmonton. Think. For Vancouver, I would say they could potentially win 2 of these games. I don't see them winning against Calgary or Edmonton. So they'll be tired against Edmonton as well. I think they can beat Seattle and LA. They get 4 more points. And they're right now at 87. They get 4, they're going to be at 91. They're not making it. I don't see the Canucks making it. What if they win all 4? They get 8 more points. That brings them to 95 points. And that's really, really hoping that's really, really hoping that either Nashville or Dallas really messes it up, and so does Vegas, and they get lucky and get the spot. I highly doubt the Vancouver Canucks can make it, but we've all seen crazier things happen. It's ridiculous. I really don't think that Vancouver can make it. So I'm gonna put it against Vegas, Dallas, Nashville. I'm gonna see how they also makes it, because they need to basically get anything more than 1 point from these games, and they'll be good. So it's really between Dallas, I would say. I'm also gonna just close some tabs here just to make it clear, just to show Nashville, Dallas, and Vegas. That's what it is now. For the final spots, as I'm assuming it should go, I'm predicting that Nashville finishes the year with, how many points did I say? I'm predicting Nashville finishes the year with maybe 96 or 97 points. Dallas finishes with 97 points, tied with maybe Nashville, or maybe even go ahead of Nashville. And I'm saying Vegas finishes the year with 95, and they don't make it. That's my prediction, but who knows what can happen, and this is pretty solid stuff here. So I just want to quickly go in and think, what are some of the other matchups that could potentially happen, and the ups and downs that could happen, based on basically home ice advantage, Minnesota and St. Louis and all that. Minnesota and St. Louis, that's the first one. Let's take a look and let's think. Well, right now I'm gonna take a look at their schedules as well and do a bit of a breakdown. Minnesota and St. Louis is the first one. Let's take a look at that. St. Louis, and Vegas. I mean, not St. Louis, it's Minnesota. Okay, so taking a look at it. Something on my laptop. I went onto the Wild website, and they just like gave me a little notification, like, do you want to chat with our thing? Whatever. Okay, so Minnesota. Sorry, I was from Minnesota. Sorry, my mind is running a little bit lost. Minnesota has 4 games left. St. Louis has 4 left. On the year. And so, wait, does St. Louis have 4 left? St. Louis has, yeah, they also have 4 left. So let's take a look at St. Louis' schedule. St. Louis right now in the standings. St. Louis has 105. Minnesota has 107. So same games played. They're just 2 points difference. So looking at St. Louis' schedules, could St. Louis go second into the Central and take Minnesota's spot and get home ice advantage in the first round at least? So the first game is tonight, Saturday 23rd. They have a game with Arizona, and then a back-to-back against Anaheim on the road. A day off, and then on the road again against Colorado. A 2-day break, and they're back at home to face Vegas for the final game of the regular season. Okay, so they have a pretty okay schedule. So two teams on playoff spots and a team very much in a playoff spot, and a team that's fighting for one. What do I think can happen? I think they'll beat Arizona and Anaheim. There's no question. They've been really, really hot of late. I think they're gonna beat Arizona and Anaheim both, and then it's gonna be against Colorado. I think it's gonna be a bit more of a competition. I'm gonna say it's gonna be an overtime game. I think Colorado is gonna take it in overtime, but St. Louis might get a point, and I think they're gonna beat Vegas. So they could potentially go 3-0-1 in these final games, meaning they get a total of 7 points. And St. Louis gets 7 points. That finished their season with 112. So look at Minnesota's schedule. Minnesota up and coming. Doesn't have any games on the 23rd, but on the 24th they have Nashville, a day off. And then Arizona, and then a day off, and then a back-to-back against Calgary and Colorado. That's a sad one. If you're the Wild, I keep calling them the Preds for some reason today. Sorry, I apologize. Let's think. They've got against Nashville. I think they beat Nashville. I think they also beat Arizona. I think against Calgary, I'm gonna say they lose to Calgary, and they lose to Colorado. So they go 2-0. Means they get 4 more points. Finish the season with 111. To St. Louis 112. I'm saying St. Louis gets into second spot in the Central, but by a really, really close margin. I want to say that St. Louis, first of all, is a better team, and they also have what I would say is, a bit of an easier schedule than Minnesota. And so I'm going to say that, I think maybe that's possibly could happen, but the matchup's still going to stay the same. Pretty much it's set in stone on the matchups. I think the only thing in the entire league that's still got to be decided is the wild card in the West. In due time, Los Angeles should also clinch their spot as third Pacific. So that should be pretty interesting to see how that turns out. Because I'm gonna be watching the wild card race like every day. I'm gonna be checking the standings, seeing what it's like. Because because anything can happen still there. I mean, Vancouver could make a push for it and take it. But regardless, let's see. Let's go to the East. Sorry, let's go to Edmonton and LA. Actually, I do want to see how they could finish their years out. Edmonton, I don't know about Edmonton. I mean, Edmonton's been hot lately. Like they've been really, really good lately. As much as I hate to admit it, they have been. There's no question about it. I just want to take a look. What's their winning streak looking like? So they beat Colorado 6-3. They beat Dallas 5-2. They beat Vegas. They beat Nashville. They lost to Minnesota. Okay, and then they kind of but they've been on a pretty hot run of late. Okay, LA, as I just mentioned, they have 4 games. They have 3 games left. Edmonton has 4, and in the standings, Edmonton has a 4-point lead in LA with a game in hand over Vegas. So I mean, honestly, everything considered, Edmonton should be the second Pacific team, but they could still be overtaken. Could they? Yeah, they could. So LA has 3 games. They could potentially win all 3, right? Anaheim, Seattle, and Vancouver. Let's say they win all 3. They get 6 points. That finishes LA with 100 points on the year. What about Edmonton? They've got Columbus, Pittsburgh, San Jose, and Vancouver. So for them, honestly, so for Edmonton, the only way they could lose their spot is if they only get 1 point from these next 4 games, which is Columbus, Pittsburgh, San Jose, and Vancouver. They only get 1 point, which would be the overtime point. That's how. And Los Angeles wins their 3 games. Then it'll be LA in second and Edmonton third, which I would love to see that happen. But I don't think it will because, Edmonton, because they've got Columbus. They're in Columbus on the 24th. They have a day off, and then they're in Pittsburgh. They have a day off, and they have a back-to-back at home against San Jose and Vancouver. I'm going to say they beat Columbus. They lose to Pittsburgh, and then they beat San Jose, and then they lose. And then they beat San Jose and they beat Vancouver. They go 3-1-0 in these final four. That would put. This is being realistic, obviously. That would put them at 104 points to finish the year. I'm going to say LA wins all 3 of their games. No, let's say they get 5 points. Let's say they lose maybe one in overtime or something. 5 points, they put them at 99. So yes, obviously this is going to be Edmonton's going to take second in the Pacific, and LA is going to be third. Okay, pretty interesting. Let's go to the East now. By the way, all the spots in the East have been confirmed, which is pretty solid. Because that's been a pretty easy set down, I think, settling down happening. First of all, I'm going to say this: Metro, New York, and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's not taking New York by any means. Even if Pittsburgh did win all of their 3 games left, and the Rangers lost their 4 games left, New York Rangers would still have more points than Pittsburgh does. However, Tampa and Toronto. Yes, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They lost to Tampa 8-1. Very Leafs thing to do. It's still possible that things could change up here, and that Tampa could get the home ice advantage in the series. I would love to see that happen. I do want Toronto to lose in the first round, because I want them to continue their streak of losing in the first round, because I think that would be pretty fun to see. I'm going to travel into the schedule. So, okay, let's see. Toronto has 4 games left. They've got tonight. They're in Florida, and they've got a back-to-back, and they're in Washington. They've got a day off, and then they're at home against Detroit. They've got 2 days, and they're at home against Boston. So heck, Boston can actually get into the mix here as well. So I'm going to take a look at their schedule as well. It's all possible that they come in and replace Tampa. Should be interesting to see. Okay, so Bruins and Rangers are actually in the middle of a game right now. Bruins lead 2-0 against the Rangers. So that maybe helps you kind of predict this game. Predict how things go a little better. So Toronto, let's think realistically. They have Florida, and I believe Matthews isn't going to be playing tonight against Florida. So that should be interesting. Florida, and then Washington, and then Detroit and Boston. I'm going to say that the Leafs lose to Florida. The Leafs are tired, and they lose to the Caps. They beat the Red Wings. And then just at the end of the year, let's say they beat Boston. We're going to say they beat Boston, because I think they will. That means they would go 2-0 to the final 4 of the year. Toronto. That would give them 4 more points, which would bring them to 112 points on the year. 112 points on the year. What about Tampa? Tampa has a total of 5 left in the year. They've got Nashville and then a back-to-back against Florida. A day off, and then they have Columbus. A day off, and then they have another back-to-back against Columbus and New York. So they're also finishing the year with 5-7. So that's a pretty tiring schedule, I see. I'm going to say that Tampa beats Nashville. They lose to Florida. They beat Columbus. They beat both games again. They win both games against Columbus, and they beat the Isles. That would make them 4-1-0, which would give them 8 points total in the standings. Bring them to 110 points. But honestly, I'm going to say Toronto makes it to 112. So I'm going to say Toronto holds on to second Atlantic. But anything can happen. It's the Toronto Maple Leafs we're talking here, people. And then there's Boston. So they have 5 games left, including the one they're playing. As I'm recording this, they're up 2-1 against the Rangers. 2-0, against the Rangers. I'm going to say the Boston beats the Rangers because they're up 2-0. They beat Montreal because they were there on the back-to-back. They have a day off. They have Florida at home, a day off. And then Buffalo and then Toronto. Oh, so they're also on a back-to-back against Toronto. Okay, interesting. I'm going to say they beat the Rangers. They beat the Habs. They lose to Florida, because Florida is also red hot. They beat Buffalo, and then they lose to Toronto. That would put them at a 3-2-0, which would give them 6 more points. 6 more points, which would give them 105, but I said Tampa's going to hit 110. So I doubt it'll happen. I think it's pretty much should be locked up pretty solid everywhere in the East as we see it. That's my thoughts on it, though. Anything can change, as I've said multiple times. Today, there's still a lot that can happen. And so, that means that we go on to the final topic of today's podcast, which is the Hart race. Of course, how could I forget the Hart race. Who's going to win the Hart this year? Well, I would love to know. I want Johnny Gaudreau to win. That shouldn't be much of a secret because he's a Flames player and he's most likely to win it from the Flames, unless Tkachuk goes insane. With whatever's left. Let's take a look here at the standings for points this year. So for me right now, I'm gonna say there's 4 contenders for the Hart, really. McDavid, Huberdeau, Gaudreau, and Matthews. In no specific order, obviously. I'm going to put Tricidal in there as well, and those are going to be the top 5 players I'm going to juggle around. I'm talking about who can take the Hart. McDavid, Huberdeau, Gaudreau, Tricidal, and Matthews. Who's going to win it? Well, okay. My thoughts are that... Okay, let's see who can win it. Let's take a look. So, basically, out of them, I'm going to my thoughts are, it's going to really come down between McDavid, Gaudreau, and Matthews, but we're going to talk about all 5 of those guys, because they're top 5 in points. McDavid has 116 points. Second is Huberdeau with 113. Third is Gaudreau with 109. Fourth is Draisaitl with 107. And fifth is Matthews with 102. However, it's worth mentioning for Austin Matthews that he's injured. He's played way less games than some of the other guys. He's going to finish with way less games than some of the other guys. And he has 58 goals. Leads the league in goals by a mile. By 4 goals against Leon Draisaitl, who's 54, and Kreider, who is 51. So I think there's no question that there's no question in my mind that Matthews takes home the Maurice Richard. And the reason for the case, I'm going to make a case for each one. McDavid. Leads the league in points. There's no question about it. He overall has some of the most skill around the league. There's no question about it. He's carrying the Oilers. He's so good. He's a generational talent, and I hate saying all of this as a Flames fan. Okay, Huberdeau. What's my case for him? Well, he's second in the league. You see, McDavid makes a lot of his living off the power play. Huberdeau, sure he does, but maybe he's a little bit better overall as well. He's got so many assists. He's a playmaker. His plus minus is better. And overall, he's been having maybe a more complete year than McDavid has been. Maybe. I don't know much about those guys, but still. Johnny Gaudreau. This is going to be the easiest one to make a case for. He doesn't lead the league in points, sure. But he's 38 goals, 71 assists. He leads the league, I believe. Or he's one of the top players in primary assists. He has the most 5-on-5 points in the entire league, and I believe the most since the 95-96 season when Yager had 95. Gaudreau has 85 5-on-5 points. Even strength points, sorry. He leads the league in even strength points by a mile. McDavid is second with 74, tied with Matthews as well, who has 74. Huberdeau is 72. Let's talk about even strength goals as well. Even strength goals. Gaudreau is 6 with 32, but it's not a goal scorer. Matthews is 43, McDavid is 43, but whatever. Okay, I'm just taking a look at that stat because I was curious. Sorry. Gaudreau should be having a solid year. He leads the league with a plus 60. And I believe I read somewhere else. No player, and by the way, the entire Flames first line is top 3 in plus minus. Plus 60, plus 56, and plus 53 for Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Tkachuk, respectively. No forward has had over a plus 60 plus minus since 86-87 when Gretzky had that. When it had a plus 69 plus minus. No forward. Gaudreau could do that this year. You want to know where McDavid is in plus minus? McDavid is a plus 27. Huberdeau is a plus 39. Draisaitl is a plus 19 and Matthews is a plus 17. Talk about a two-way game. Gaudreau's been playing an overall better 200-foot game. It's one of the best stats overall. And honestly, really solid numbers. Okay, let's talk about Leon Draisaitl. Make his case. Second in goals. But he's not just a goal scorer like Matthews. Sure, he has less goals than Matthews. But he's way more assists. He has more points. And he's been better than Matthews this year. There's no question when it comes to goal scoring. And that's why he's going to win the Hart because of his goal scoring ability. And while maybe it's not better than Matthews, he's had a more complete game. He's had both. Draisaitl also has a higher plus minus than Matthews does as well. He's been one of McDavid's best players, but remember also, for a large part of the season, Draisaitl had more points than McDavid did. Point to consider. Let's make the case for Austin Matthews. Leads the league in goals. And not just does that, he has 7 or 8 less games than everyone else in the Hart conversation. And has 4 more goals than the next person who's 54. He's 58 goals in 70 games this year. It's true. He's been one of the best players in the entire league. He's shown his goal scoring prowess has hit another level. And he could have 60 goals. He could easily give 60 goals if he comes back, once he comes back. But he also has played showed that complete game with 44 assists as well. So it's been a lot of that. And that's my case for each one. Okay. Now, honestly, I did talk a lot more about Johnny Gaudreau because I know about him more and also I'm a little bit biased. So who should win the Hart? This has been a big conversation. And I'm going to say it's going to be between McDavid, Gaudreau, and Matthews. Those are going to be the 3 guys. Huber and Tricidal having great years, but compared to other players who have been playing similar games to them, it's just not been them. It's just not been there for them. There have been other players who've played their kind of game and been better. Okay, so let's put it this way. Okay. Well, my thoughts on this are Gaudreau should win the Hart. Because sure, he has less points than McDavid, and sure, he has less goals than Matthews and McDavid. He's 38 goals, 71 assists for 109 points. But he's been one of the top players for primary assists. I believe he's at the top in that category. If not tied or second to Huberto, but he's in that conversation. He's in that Hart he's among the players he's in the Hart conversation with. He's the top in that. With McDavid and Matthews, sorry. He has the most even strength points. He has shown his two-way foot game. He's a plus 60. He's right now not only looking to do some things he's done at even strength in the 200-foot category. He's not only competing with players this year, he's competing with the legends of the past 30, 40 years in some of these categories, such as plus minus, as I mentioned, such as even strength points. And he's playing the most complete game. There's no question about it. He's playing on one of the best lines in the league. He has such good... And honestly, he's boosted Tkachuk and Lindholm to the level as well. And he's been so good. He's been there the whole year for the Flames. McDavid, sure, he's good. But he's gotten so many of his points from the power play. And playing, basically... I'm also going to take a look at time on ice here. Just so we can... just so I can talk about it. Take a look at time on ice. McDavid's time on ice is 22:09, 22 minutes and 9 seconds. Matthews is 20 minutes and 30 seconds. Johnny Gaudreau is 18 minutes and 28 seconds. He's playing 2 minutes less than Matthews each game and nearly 4 minutes less than McDavid. And then he's still performing numbers-wise to a caliber of McDavid and Matthews, points-wise, I guess. And 5-on-5 he's been even better. Come on. You're telling me this guy doesn't win it? With all that he's playing in that season. If he played, let's say, 2 more minutes a game, Johnny Gaudreau, he could be playing, he could have way more points than he does. But he's not. He's leading the league in so many different aspects. Plus, minus, even strength points. Overall, even strength play. He's been doing it all, and that's why I think he should be the Hart winner. Honestly, I can see the reasoning behind why McDavid and Matthews should win it. I really honestly, again, McDavid's so good. He leads the league in points, obviously. He's going to take home the Art Ross. I think he will at least. Matthews leads the league in goals. Like, no one's going to touch that caliber of goal scoring this year. I can see the reasoning behind why those guys should win it. And in all honesty, looking at how the league is and some of the biases that McDavid and Matthews get, and all the more attention they get, I'm going to say that they might just get voted to win it. But in my all full sense, Gaudreau should win the Hart Trophy. I think that's where I'm going to end it here. I've been talking for an hour and 8 minutes, casually. It's been a fun podcast to record as well, talking about the playoff race and the Hart race and stuff. But yeah, I made my arguments for this race. My stuff, and maybe next podcast I'll be discussing that stuff. Next episode, we're going to be talking about having the final 4 games of the regular season for the Calgary Flames. Holy crap, I forgot to mention one more thing in this one. Dude, I can't believe it. Eric Goodbranson winning the Peter Maher Good Guy Award. That's pretty awesome. Voted by the media contingent. He's a really real good class act. Congrats to him for winning that as well. So I just had to mention that. Regardless. That's it all. That's all I really have to say for this episode. If you have any opinion, something I said that you agree with, something I said that you disagree with, any opinions, questions, something you would like me to talk about in the next episode, please tell me in the comment section down below. I'll be more than happy to listen or read what you have to say and talk about it in the podcast. So other than that, have a really good day. Everyone, thanks so much for joining me here to listen to the episode. I really hope you did enjoy it. Have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for listening. I will see you next week as we talk about the final 4 games of the Calgary Flames regular season, along with my playoff predictions, the playoff bracket. We'll be doing that next episode. Jimmy checking again on the Hart race, maybe a couple of the other trophies, and just the other events that happen around the hockey world. We will see what happens. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good day, all.